Hey everybody, what's up? Welcome to today's show. My name is Jonathan. I'm one of the commissioners here at Masters Fantasy Leagues. Joined by three of my friends and co-workers here. Two of our draft coordinators, Dynasty Al, the Doc, and then CEO, owner John Beast. What's up, guys?
Doing, Jonathan?
Real good. Here at Masters, we have over 600 Dynasty Leagues. We've never folded a single league. Dynasty football never sleeps here. The season's just now wrapping up. Trades are already coming in for the 2021 season. And we just don't stop, so we wanted to jump right into a little bit of trading show. It's early, but like I said, Dynasty never sleeps, so we're going to be looking for some buy low, sell high targets, some guys we think you can go get right now and help your team for the 2021 season. You guys ready?
Let's do it.
Yeah.
All right, guys, let's jump into this. Who wants to go first?
So I'm going to kick us off with actually a trade away, just somebody who I think you can absolutely sell high on right now. He probably just helped you win a championship, or come in second if you're JK here. But David Montgomery had a great stretch the second half of this year. He had a concussion mid-season. Ever since the concussion, just set the league on fire. Was playing great, put up awesome fantasy numbers. But I think a lot of it was supported by some weak defenses, and I just don't think he's an upper echelon prospect and running back. But he's still young. You can get a ton of value for him. So people who just saw what he did at the end of last year, I think you could get a very high return for him right now. So he's my top sell high right now.
Yeah, now would be the best time to trade him.
Yeah.
I mean, dude, he's looked elite based on some of the competition he's faced. I totally agree. And it pains me to hear it because I do have two of my Dynasty teams.
Well, I got one too. It's hard to because he just won a lot of people some leagues, but Alvin Kamara. It may be time to move him on. You get so much for him, but I'd be looking for getting multiple number one picks.
Yeah.
And for multiple years, and getting a good young player back. I think that's a good way to go.
Yeah, I like it. When we were doing one of the last shows, we were talking about our MVP. I was going to put Kamara in there. Right. And I said, his stats weren't even as good as they could have been because of those weeks where he didn't have Drew Brees. Just didn't look that good. Guys, Drew Brees is like 52 years old. If that's like a preview of what's to come, I am a little worried about Kamara.
Yeah.
He just wasn't doing that with Taysom Hill.
So I'm actually going to play devil's advocate a little bit because in some ways I agree a ton. I was really starting to get worried like with the Taysom Hill leagues and stuff. But then because he really made his living the past few years off being a receiving back out of the backfield, a ton of short passes from Drew Brees. When he scored 6 rushing touchdowns, he looked phenomenal running the ball between the tackles. Kind of looked more like a true running back than I've ever seen him look. So in some ways, I feel like maybe this is a new Alvin Kamara that we haven't even seen yet, who just started to peak out. But yeah, he is getting around the age where you start to think about, is it the time to sell? But I don't know, I'm not ready to sell just yet.
Which I agree with you, except that was with Drew Brees on the field.
Right.
With the threat of the pass.
Yeah.
With Taysom, they're just kind of stacking the box.
Yeah, I don't think Taysom's the answer for him, but if you get another competent quarterback in there, I think he can still be a top 5 fantasy running back.
I'm just worried that post Drew Brees, we may never see that top 5.
Yeah.
Pick Alvin.
I think it's better to get rid of him a year early than a year late.
That's always true. Yeah.
Is that the case with Christian McCaffrey?
Ooh.
That's all I can think about as we're talking about Kamara is, maybe I'm already a year late on McCaffrey.
I guess the only difference I feel with McCaffrey is, he didn't need an elite quarterback to do what he's done. He's done it with Bridgewater. He did it last year. It doesn't, and that's another thing too, like when you play the Saints, it's pick your poison there. You got Michael Thomas. I just don't see that in Carolina. Like, your number one objective should be to stop Christian McCaffrey, but week in, week out, he puts up 30 points.
Was that not the craziest thing ever? The Saints scored 55 points. I think Drew Brees had 12.
Yeah,
that's wild. Yeah.
That was nuts.
And crazy they didn't give him a 7th touchdown. Too.
Yeah.
For the record, I'd be mad at Sean Payton.
Yeah.
Personally. Like, dude, if I'm running 40, whatever the number is, 60 drafts is the record, and you pull me out at 59, I'm gonna be a little ticked off. I'm gonna be honest with you. And you guys are probably all gonna disagree with me on this one. Speaking of running backs, it's probably time to move on for. Man, I'm sticking up for my guy Zeke, man. I feel like you could get him as cheap as you're ever gonna get him right now. I'm not saying, trade away the house for the guy, because he is 25, 26. But man, looking back at the numbers, I don't think he scored a touchdown since Dak went out. When Dak went out, I think it was number 3 overall in fantasy football. I mean, and, you know, I feel like, you know, we were just talking about it last week. I mean, you're like, dude, like Pollard, you know, like I just think it's too early. I think in the offseason, I'd be trying to go get him right now, see if I can get a discount on him. That's just my opinion.
I feel that, yeah. I think the guy that I'd be trading away right now is, and we've talked about him a ton, but James Robinson. And, you know, I think for whatever reason, now that they're bringing in Trevor Lawrence, I feel even worse about James Robinson's situation going forward, which makes no sense.
Oh, wow.
I just feel like it's going to be the Trevor Lawrence show, and I think they're going to run the ball, but I don't know, man. I don't know that he can sustain this, and seeing that, you know, I mean, whatever running back is in there is going to get a ton of touches and produce at that same level. I don't know that I feel great about him going forward, especially in these situations where Lawrence is going to produce at a higher level. Like, they didn't have a quarterback to put up numbers last year. And Lawrence isn't a guy that's just going to keep dumping it down to the running back like Glennon or Gardner Minshew, whoever was at quarterback for them this year. So I think now's the time to move on from him. I really do. As good as he was this year as a rookie, as young as he is, as much potential as he might have, I think now's probably going to be his peak value, if I had to guess. So I think I'm moving him out and seeing if you can get some good value in return, and then hope for the best going forward.
So speaking of the Jaguars and Trevor Lawrence, this is actually one of my great buy lows kind of go, you know, trade for, go get him is second-year receiver Laviska Shenault, DJ Shark as well, but really Shenault, I mean, you know, a lot of guys drafted him in the second round last year. He played well as a rookie, but just not a ton of fantasy value there. And I think there's a lot of fantasy owners who would now trade him away for, you know, a second rounder, maybe 2 second rounders. And they're, you know, it's January right now. They're not even thinking about the fact that Trevor Lawrence is going to be coming in, and all of a sudden Laviska Shenault's going to look like the real deal. You know, A.J. Brown's a prospect I know John Beast loves, and honestly, Laviska Shenault has some A.J. Brown in him. He's phenomenal after the catch. He's got the size. Pairing him with a guy like Trevor Lawrence, I think Laviska Shenault could be one of, you know, the breakout players for 2021.
Can you believe we're talking about the Jaguars?
I know,
Yeah, a lot of Jaguars
right
here.
You know, we are all in agreement here at Masters. It's all friendly, but you know, we do have some disagreements. And I think the doc is completely wrong with James Robinson. And if you had drafted, if James Robinson's name was Jonathan Taylor or Cam Akers, if any of them produced like he had, you would have been so Clyde. You've been so freaking happy. And there's no reason for them to move on from James. So they've got nothing invested in him, and they've got. They're gonna get 4 or 5. They actually get 5 years out of him, like 4 years out of him, 3 more years out of him. With it just reminds me of Aaron Foster with no big salary to worry about, nothing. Why would you get somebody else? Andy Shoney can handle the load.
Right. No, I think that aspect of it is good. I just think with a competent quarterback in there, they're going to not. I feel like a lot of his points came from like he had his biggest weeks where he was getting a lot of dump offs for whatever reason. And obviously he's going to run the ball a lot too. And I think he's still going to be a really solid running back. I just don't think he's ever going to be top 3 like he was this year. I mean, Lawrence is going to come in and they're going to throw the ball, and they're going to throw the ball a lot. And it's not going to be little checkdowns to James Robinson because they, A, don't have a quarterback, and B, they're like almost trying to lose. It's going to be completely different in Jacksonville going forward. And I just think Robinson's going to be good, not great from here on out. So you might as well get value for him while he's great.
Yeah, and I've been on the fence with them. You know, I've been messing with these guys all year, calling them the best rookie running back, and where's Jonathan Taylor, where's all these guys. One thing I will say, as you were talking, I started thinking, if you could move them for like the 1.5, 1.6 pick, started looking at some of these guys we've been talking about, the Jamar Chases, you know, all these, you know, this incoming talent. I still think at the end of the day, give me the guy with the pedigree. For the long run, I do think that's a good trade. But I think if we start to get out of the late first round, I'll take my chances with James Robinson. Yeah. I do hear you, but I just can't see how Trevor Lawrence could hurt him.
I can't either.
I don't think. Well, I also think to an extent. Who's to say they don't take a running back?
Exactly, and this has always been my biggest thing with James Robinson. You talk about, you know, they've got no reason to be attached to him. You know, like small contract, got nothing to lose. But the way I look at it is, I mean, they could easily sign a lower level free agent running back, or they could draft a running back in the 4th, 5th round just to help James Robinson, and those guys could take over because I really don't think James Robinson was ever that elite of a prospect. I think he had a great productive year.
Yeah.
But I don't think he himself is a truly special player.
I think, is it exactly?
So I think, yeah.
Like, when I see Dare Ogunbowale come in and do the same stuff James Robinson was doing, I mean, I don't know. I don't know how great I feel about it. And similar to like Alec has said all year, I mean, I like that aspect. Like, he's cheap, they're going to keep him. But he's not Jonathan Taylor or Clyde, who they paid a premium for. They're not going to draft. Like, Kansas City's not going to draft a running back high. Indy wouldn't. I mean, but Jacksonville, if it's like third round and they see a running back they like, they might be like, well, you know what?
I guess he does have a point there where like you could bring in a 4th round running back.
And then all of a sudden that 4th round running back's better than.
And then in practice, like clearly he's faster, he's bigger, he's stronger.
Fits the new system better because they're going to be changing systems.
So I guess that would be a little bit of a concern.
And and as much as I don't think Lawrence necessarily hurts him. I just think Lawrence makes the Jaguars better as a whole. I mean, the whole situation is going to be different. And James Robinson was most productive in situations they're not really going to be in going forward.
So I'm just curious because I think you like this guy a lot too, and I think he's set to be a free agent and is just going to get small running back money. Say Marlon Mack signs a 2-year, $8 million contract in Jacksonville. Do you think Marlon Mack's better than James Robinson?
I don't, all I know is that James Robinson could not do more than whatever it was that you expected of a rookie running back. Anyone.
I agree. No, his year was phenomenal, and I'm not trying to take that away at all. I just don't love him for the future. Yeah.
And he's such an intriguing guy. I just have to
it's
ask.
polarizing. Yeah.
Let's say Jacksonville doesn't draft another running back. They draft Trevor Lawrence. We're going into fresh redraft. I just thought a redraft league. Like, where would you consider taking this guy?
Here's a weird. Well, I don't know. I don't know. It's hard. You're right. It's hard. I'm not saying that it's not. But I'm thinking he's going the 2nd or 3rd round. But I was just thinking about this. Let's say that James Robinson gives you the same production he did this year for the next 3 years. Would you trade him for Trevor Lawrence right now in fantasy?
If I knew I was getting that top 3 season from him every year, I mean, I'd keep him if I knew I was getting top 3 every year from him.
I agree.
That's hard to pass up. I just don't think he's going to be up there.
I think I'd pull the trigger. I read an article earlier today that like Trevor Lawrence was the answer to Patrick Mahomes. I don't know if you guys I read the article. Someone wrote it. I was like, wow. Any chance that that's true?
I don't know. I mean, it could be. I mean, like we talked about. I mean, go check it out on the channel. Listen to us talk about Trevor Lawrence. But I mean, he's like the closest thing to Andrew Luck that we've had. On paper, he's a perfect prospect.
Right.
Like, not even Patrick Mahomes was a perfect prospect.
Right.
Like, he had plenty of question marks coming into the league. I mean, so if Lawrence pans out, I mean, it's going to be incredible what he does.
Yeah.
So
I feel like I'd pull the trigger on that. I'd take my shot with Lawrence.
I gotta tell you something that I was thinking about when we were talking about the life, something that you're disappointed in. I've got 6 Dynasty teams. 5 of them have Patrick Mahomes. All 5 made the playoffs.
right.
I got no complaints with Patrick Mahomes. He's probably the best quarterback ever after Autogram. But having said all that, there are so many great quarterbacks. I mean, even coming in, Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert. Is it Bear or Herbert? I keep calling him Herbert, but it seems like Bear. Why does he used to call? Anyways, those are just and Tua obviously he's not that level, but he might be. And then you got Deshaun Watson, Russell Wilson. Maybe I'm wrong on that.
Yeah.
But hey, all my Patrick teams did make the playoffs. Every single one. Just throwing that out there.
It's true.
Yeah.
My Ryan Tannehill teams made the playoffs, though.
Yeah. I remember, I think it was Alex said, would you rather have Russell Wilson around 6 or Patrick Mahomes around 2?
Is this like the best it's ever been for fantasy quarterbacks?
It might be.
I can't think of it ever being this deep.
Yeah.
It goes like 10, 12 guys deep that can legitimately put up big numbers.
Yeah.
And all guys with a ceiling.
Yeah, I didn't even mention Lamar Jackson.
Right.
Or Kyler Murray.
Or Kyler Murray.
He
I didn't
had a
mention either one.
phenomenal start to the year.
Crazy. And Baker Mayfield, I mean,
Yeah.
he was
He
putting
had
up
that
big numbers
stretch, yeah.
recently. I mean, there's a lot of good quarterbacks in the league right now that can get you points. Which is, it kind of adds to that dilemma. Like, well, then do you invest in a guy like Trevor Lawrence, or do you ride with a guy like Baker Mayfield who can put up these big numbers and not cost you as much?
Hey, Philadelphia, you guys want 1 and 2.
Yeah.
Give me Wentz.
Ooh.
All right, going to jump back to some trade targets here, though. And I think this is an interesting one. It's actually like a hot take. I think it's going to happen next year, but I honestly have no idea. But, we were talking about James White on another show recently. I started looking at James White. He was a free agent this year, unrestricted free agent. I think he's going to land in Tampa with Tom Brady next year. It's a team that just really hurt. I mean, they didn't throw the ball to running backs a lot. I think it's a dream scenario for both of them. And it's a guy I think you could probably go get for a third-round pick if he's not on your waivers. And I do think, and I look, like James White, yeah, he went from 20th last year to 40th this year. That's just on half the targets.
Yeah, right.
Like, he still caught the ball at the same rate. He still had the same yards per catch. He got like 40 receptions compared to, 80 the year before.
Right.
And to me, it just seems like, I just see it happening. I don't know why. I look at the situation in Tampa, Ronald Jones, Leonard Fournette. I could just see him sign him on a team-friendly contract, being fantasy relevant again next year.
That's a really good
Yeah,
take.
so actually I love that take, and it almost brought like two different takes into my mind too. So one thing is if he doesn't land there, I kind of like him landing in Jacksonville, being the pass-catching complement to go with
Like
a
Chris
James.
Thompson was supposed to be.
Yeah, to go with James Robinson, who can pound it between the tackles. Then the other thing I started to think when you mentioned that, and now I'm starting to forget it, so we'll circle back.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of
Yeah.
teams. I've thought about it, like
Talking about
Houston.
Tampa.
And
Yeah.
There's tons of teams where I think James White at 29 on a team-friendly deal. I mean, we've spoke about it on a ton of shows. Like, running back by committee is here to stay. So I don't even care if there's a Derrick Henry, or I still think James White would be great in that Tennessee. Or go ahead.
So my train of thoughts back. So we're talking about Tampa, and James White going there. Another running back who I think everybody is sleeping, because I thought people were way too high on him during our last rookie drafts. But go get Keyshawn Vaughn. I mean, Leonard Fournette came in on a one-year deal. Ronald Jones might have 1 year left. James White may or may not be coming. And I think Keyshawn Vaughn's very similar to, he's definitely more well-rounded than James White in the sense that he's better between the tackles, but he can be good in the passing game. I think he's the most complete back they have there. And they drafted him for a reason. He's under contract the longest out of any of the guys on the roster right now. I think Keyshawn Vaughn's going to get some opportunities next year, and you could easily get him for a third rounder possibly.
I agree.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, and I banged my drum for Ronald Jones last year. I'm off it this year. And he did disappoint.
And yeah, he did fine. Actually, he did better than I thought he would. And
Right.
yeah, but I'd still be off it now too.
I think Tom Brady's going to get him over there.
Yeah.
Just something I
See,
feel.
to mention on Keyshawn Vaughn, we talked about him in the Sorcerer Series. That's a little plug for the Sorcerer Series. The best thing about Dynasty football, it goes all year round. I picked up Keyshawn Vaughn twice on waivers last week. Not once, twice in 5 leagues. I was just there, I just picked him up.
Yeah.
And he's in a lot of leagues. Go look at your waiver wire. And I've got, just go look at your waiver wire. You'll see him. Obviously, you won't be able to get him up, but he's a great third-round pick because if you go look at own percentage and you're looking for older players, he's going to be way down at the bottom. You won't even see him in the first screen because in redraft leagues, he's not in any of them. But in Dynasty leagues, he's on everybody's roster, not redraft leagues.
Yeah.
And so he'll be way down the sheet. Nobody even will realize he's sitting there.
Yeah, that's awesome.
All right.
I like that.
All right, guys. Anybody else?
That's all I
Yeah,
got.
I'll just say go get Joe Mixon because I think I was a
that's
year
a good one.
early on my take. I think next year is when he finally gets that top 5. I've only been saying it for so long, like it's bound to happen eventually. I'm just gonna say it every year until it happens.
I've always been a
But-
lockstep with this one. I love Joe Mixon. Think he's gonna.
In all honesty, the Bengals have looked pretty decent in the last few weeks, and they're only gonna get better on the offensive line. Burrow is gonna take a lot of weight off Joe Mixon's shoulders. I feel like he's in this weird spot where he's like kind of hurt, but they're kind of saving him anyways. So I think next year is the year, and I think he's going to be pretty cheap right now just because he's been hurt so much this season. I think go get him because the talent's there. Next year I think he'll finally have that opportunity, and he's going to put together a top 5 season.
Agree 1,000%.
And I do feel like you can get him relatively cheap.
Right. Honestly, I have him in a couple leagues, and I think if I got a decent offer, I'd just be like, you know what? I feel really highly about Joe Mixon. So I mean, there's probably people out there that are more frustrated than I am that would give him away for cheaper.
I gotta tell you, speak about the Bengals. Joe Burrow is so good, but what you want to be going out and doing is you really want to go out and talk up Tyler Boyd because Tyler Boyd is such a good wide receiver. He's good in the slot. He catches everything comes with everything comes his way. And if you talk up Tyler Boyd, sneakily go out and get T. Higgins, who's twice as good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that.
I like that too. T. Higgins is definitely someone. I really like the Bengals offense going forward. I just something they're gonna be filled with fantasy studs. I can see it coming.
So-
Look forward to it.
I got one more guy. I think I mentioned him on maybe one of our waiver wire stashes because he's out there in waiver wire. But if he's on rosters, you can get him for a third right now. And it's key to get him now because trades will get turned off around the draft lottery time. But then free agency is going to happen right at the beginning of March. Go get John Ross in case he signs with the Green Bay Packers. It'd be exciting if he lands there, and just a guy you can get for super cheap right now, maybe for free, and flip him once he signs in a good destination.
Yeah.
Yeah, and speaking
Change
of
scenery.
Bengals receivers, and I have been known in the past to hold on to old guys a little too long.
AJ
Could have got
I still-
AJ take it's on its way.
It's
Shout out to
coming.
Ezekiel.
I still love that AJ Green gets to choose where he goes, man. And I think a year removed from the injury, and look, I wouldn't give up much for him, a third round pick. That's it. But I think I think he'll be worth at least a second round pick at some point in the season with the right team. I don't know who that team is yet. I mean, Houston, Green Bay. I think there's a lot of teams that could use a veteran wide receiver.
Yeah.
I don't think AJ Green is completely done. Just my opinion.
I actually like that take.
Hey, we're doing what ifs. What if the Chiefs had drafted Metcalf instead of Hardman?
Crazy.
Would
Crazy.
Tyreek Hill be number one receiver there?
It's crazy. So I still think yes.
Yeah.
I still think it, but it would be just
That's insane.
it would be unreal.
That's
yeah.
insane.
I think Patrick Mahomes would be like a 1A,
Yeah.
and no one would even be
Yeah,
close.
there is no
That's just not fair.
So this is gonna sound maybe
Yeah, right.
crazy because what you were kind of hinting at, like DK would far away be the number one. I actually think Tyreek Hill's fantasy numbers would be better if DK was there. Because some of the long touchdowns Mecole Hardman gets, it's because all the attention's on Tyreek. I think DK, because of his size and speed, he would naturally just get a lot more attention, and then Tyreek all of a sudden would just have a lot more room to play underneath, hit the deep balls too. I think it would do wonders for Tyreek Hill.
In all honesty, I go trade for Mecole Hardman because Sammy Watkins is done after this year.
Mecole
correct?
Hardman's someone I've seen dropped multiple times in the last 2 weeks, and he's somebody
I
wanna
think
go-
next year, I think he's going to take a huge step forward. You've been seeing it a little more with Watkins banged up. Like just the last few weeks, I feel like you've seen Hardman do a little more and a little more and a little more. And I mean, yeah, he isn't DK Metcalf right now, but he was that talented guy, and he has elite speed. And you could get him for nothing right now. And he's ready to step into a bigger role. Could be next year, he could be having that big breakout. I'd go get him. And honestly, I'm going to go see if he's available in any of my leagues as soon as this is over.
So I got one last trade target before we call this quits. This is a guy I was talking about pre-show a little bit, but Robert Tonyan, most of you might not know, he finished as the PPR number 3 tight end. This is a guy who came out of nowhere. He's been around for a little while, came out in 2017, but still only 26-year-old, and we've seen these tight ends who take a few years to produce. He's looked like the real deal to me. He's been fueled by touchdowns. I think he's scored 10 this year. He had that one monster game where John Deese beat Ryan with him, which was a lot of fun. But
Slide that in.
I just think Tonyan looks legit. I don't want to call him George Kittle, but he's kind of got a little bit of that moxie and just confidence when he's out there. Wears the same number as Kittle, and I think he's going to be a top 12, top 10 tight end for the next 4 or 5 years.
I can see that.
Nothing about the trade target. He just mentioned Kittle and all preseason. I think most people are taking Kittle in front of Kelsey, and I just want to hang out for Travis Kelsey. We talked about in the last show. What a season! And I don't think it was pretty cool. I mean, I obviously Kittle's hurt most of the season, but even if he wasn't hurt, it doesn't
1,400 yards for a tight end.
Kittle had 1,400 last year, didn't he?
I think did Kelsey already break that record? I think he broke it already.
Yeah.
He broke Kittle's receiving yards record it was either last year or 2 years ago.
But boy, that Kelsey, man. And I cannot tell you how many leagues I passed on Kelsey. I mean, we all did, because you have to take him in the second round. It just seemed way too early.
One of the leagues I won this year was I just decided to do something different and took Kelsey in the second round, which I never do.
Yeah.
I need to call out one of our, it's not a competitor, it's just a Draft Sharks, which is somebody that we use, and this is just like a free, I don't know what you want to call it, but anyways, in our leagues, they had Kelsey as the number 1 player to draft. They said he was the most valuable player, and I think it proved out correct.
Hard to argue.
I 100% agree. I think it's interesting because we look at kind of how fantasy evolves over the years. It wasn't crazy like 5, 6 years ago. Like Gronk and Jimmy Graham were like first round picks. No one questioned it. But like for some reason, Kelsey in round 2 seems like,
Yeah.
oh, that's crazy. But like,
You're right.
you know, we saw Gronk and Jimmy Graham go like mid to late first in redraft leagues all the time.
Yeah.
Of, you know, him.
Especially Gronk.
Yeah.
You're right about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, we love Dynasty football here. Dynasty football year round.
Yeah.
All right, guys, thanks so much for listening. That's going to wrap up this trade show. If you could leave a comment, tell us someone that you're going to trade for in your Dynasty Leagues. Come be a part of the Masters family. We'd love to have you.